Well, I'm excited to be continuing our series about social media here today. And if you have any questions about the talk, you are more than welcome to email me, emma@whitecourt.church. And I would love to talk with you about any questions that you might have. We can get that conversation started. Well, let's start off with a couple of fun facts. Did you know that 1 in every 3 pictures taken on a mobile device is, in fact, a selfie? That is a lot of selfies. And 93 million selfies are taken per day across the globe. 93 million. Oh my goodness. Well, let me tell you, when I was a teenager, selfie culture was in full swing. So I definitely have taken my fair share of selfies. I've contributed to that number. But the ironic thing, looking back, is that, well, I didn't mind taking selfies necessarily. I hated getting my picture taken. Any day I was forced to get my photo taken was one of the worst days of the year. I remember, you'd go and you'd sit in front of the backdrop, and you really only had 1 or 2 chances to get it right, on picture day at school. And with your phone, you can take as many photos as you'd like, and you can just delete the ones that didn't turn out right. But on photo day, the stakes were high. Oh my goodness. And I remember when I got my high school graduation photos done, the one question on my mind was, okay, do I do my hair curly or straight? Curly or straight? And so I waffled back and forth for days before the day of it. And eventually, I decided I was going to wear my hair straight. Okay, good, it's decided. So I woke up early that morning, straightened my hair. I really straightened it, really fried it. No heat protection, no nothing, just really went for it. And I remember I got to school that day, and I saw my best friend. And you know how she had done her hair? Big, beautiful curls. And I immediately thought, could have gone curly, should have gone curly. What am I thinking? Why did I do my hair straight? And in that moment, I just felt this overwhelming sense of pressure that I had somehow, that this one decision was going to dictate my whole senior year. And I'd just blown it. To this day, I'm still not a big fan of getting my photo taken. And maybe you're here in the room and you're kind of feeling the same way, but today we're talking about this idea of selfies and, even more importantly, selfie culture. And to start off, here's an observation about human nature. It's not a religious thing, it's just a thing. It's something maybe you've experienced by observing other people. Here it is. Human beings are self-obsessed by nature. There, I said it. Think about it. If you're in a photo with, 5 other people, who's the first person you look at? Yourself. And if you like the way you look in the photo, what is it? It's a good photo. If you don't like the way you look in it, what is it? It's a bad photo. Get rid of that one, delete it. Don't like that. But this idea isn't anything new, right? In fact, if you're familiar with Greek mythology, you'll know that the Greeks had this myth about a guy named Narcissus, who was supposed to be the son of a god, little g. And the story of Narcissus is that he was this really good-looking guy. Really good-looking person, okay? And as he grew up, there were several young ladies that caught his attention, but nothing really stuck. He didn't feel the spark with anyone. He simply could not find someone he could not live without. Until one day, he was walking past a pool of water and he happened to see his reflection. And boy, did he like what he saw. Narcissus liked his own reflection so much that he fell in love with it. And the story is that he was so in love with his own reflection that he was actually unable to pull himself away from the water, and he died of starvation. Oh. Now that's a pretty extreme story, but that's where in the English language we get this term narcissist. And this idea that there's something naturally ingrained in humans that makes us just a little bit more obsessed with ourselves than maybe we ought to be, it's not a new idea. In fact, it's not even a Christian idea. So bearing this in mind, it's not all too surprising that the human race has come up with this idea of selfies. Believe it or not, the first self-portrait photo was taken in 1839. It wasn't until the late 1800s, when the first self-timers were invented, that self-portraits, or selfies, became easier to achieve. And then, of course, as Kodak and Polaroid began to make more affordable cameras, selfies became more and more popular. The first mobile phone with a front-facing camera was released in 2003, and then the first selfie stick was invented in 2015. And if you're not familiar with a selfie stick, it's basically a telescopic stick. You put your phone at one end, and you can hold it up, and you can get more in the background or more people in your photo, whatever you'd like. And so that's selfie sticks. So, I mentioned earlier, I admitted it, that I've taken selfies before. And I'm sure if we're all honest today, maybe many of us have also taken selfies. But as I was preparing for this talk, I realized that I haven't really often stopped to think about why I was taking this selfie. So I thought I'd do some digging into the research behind why people take selfies, kind of the common reasons for taking them. And what I found was really interesting. At a surface level, we know why we take this selfie. We're in a cool place with cool people, or we like how our hair looks, or whatever it is. We've discovered something that's worth documenting, and we want to take a photo of ourselves to keep for ourselves or to share it with somebody else. But studies show that there are actually other reasons that are hidden a little bit deeper under the surface. And now, keep in mind that these reasons might be easier to identify in other people. They're usually more difficult to understand in our own lives. These are kind of like undercover reasons. They're more under the surface and harder to see. The first undercover reason I might take a selfie is something called self-disclosure. Self-disclosure is really all about revealing certain parts of ourselves or our emotions, and the goal here is to create an image that is likable to other people. So if I'm having a bad hair day, I might post a selfie and say something like, "Crazy hair, no cares." And maybe somebody might like my photo and comment and say, "Hey, I like your hair like that." And then I've felt like I've earned some maybe sympathy, maybe some appreciation from that person. So that is self-disclosure. The second reason for taking a selfie is something called self-promotion. Self-promotion. And that is taking a photo that highlights or draws attention to something that I'm proud of, something that I feel like I've accomplished. And the goal in taking and sharing this photo is to be perceived as maybe capable or intelligent or even talented by others. And now remember, the beauty of the selfie is that you can really control what you want to show people. You can control what's in the background. So I could take a photo of my kitchen, and I can make sure the counter behind me is really clean. And it doesn't matter if there's dishes in the sink, right? Because you can't see the sink in the shot. And I could post the photo and write #cleanfreak, and maybe someone would see my post and think, "Man, Emma really keeps her kitchen clean. That's amazing." They'd have no idea what's really going on in my kitchen because they can't see any of it. And while we're on the topic of great selfies, who here has taken a mirror selfie? Maybe nobody's, we've got some brave people in there. Awesome. That's where you flip your camera around to the outward-facing camera on your phone, and you stand in front of a mirror and you take a selfie. Now, I've never personally mastered this art. It's a little bit beyond me. I always feel like I have T-Rex hands when I'm holding the phone. I never quite know how to hold it. But this is a very popular method of taking selfies. I came across this article that featured research from Dr. Anna Pareka, who is a professor and a researcher in visual culture and media arts. And she has this theory that when the mirror was first invented and introduced to society, it changed our visual culture completely. With it, she says, the way humans related to the world shifted, and they no longer explained the world through theological structures, such as God, but through the structure in which humans were at the center of the universe. It's a very interesting idea and some good food for thought. But what I could not believe when I started researching this idea of mirror selfies as a major social media trend is that some social media influencers have actually taken it one step further, and they've started to take what's called the faux mirror selfie. Now, this is where they create the illusion of a mirror to make it look like they just happen to look up, see a mirror, and snap the shot. But in reality, they're using a second camera to create the illusion of a mirror. And everything in the shot is staged. What's in the background, the lighting in the photo, what their outfit is, everything. But what they've achieved through artificial means is this sense that they've spontaneously snapped a photo in the intimate space of their bedroom or their home, their living room, and they're communicating vulnerability with whoever sees that photo. It appears as though they've let us into their world by taking this quick selfie and sharing it. And I can't help but think how much more work it is to create the illusion of a mirror than to just use a mirror. It's way more time-consuming to create artificial vulnerability than it is to actually be vulnerable. Like, why go through all the trouble to fake a spontaneous moment when real spontaneity would be so much easier to achieve? In the article I referenced earlier, the author came to this conclusion. And they said that the social media environment, in other words, the world of social media, has made artificiality normal by embracing and valuing the artificial. In other words, the more fabricated and aesthetically pleasing your feed is, the more you'll be rewarded as a content creator. And because the social media world is so centered around visual art, this becomes a natural part of the creative process as a content creator. Another example of the artificial being kind of celebrated on social media platforms is something called face filters. Maybe you're familiar with these. Some of them are kind of fun. You can put a puppy face on yourself, get some nice ears and a nose going, or you can try on different mustaches, maybe see what kind of men you could see what kind of facial hair you want to grow next, what styles work for you. These filters, they can be really entertaining. They take the image that you recorded and they alter it by adding elements that weren't in the original. They first appeared on social media as kind of more of a gimmick, like visual dress-up, so to speak. But now there are more and more filters that are used for the purpose of beautifying appearances, sharpening, shrinking, enhancing, recoloring the faces of those who are in the photo. And all this got me thinking, we've been used to looking at printed images of celebrities and models in magazines for decades. We've kind of gotten used to this idea. Oh, it's touched up, it's redone. But what we now have is the ability to touch up our own faces in the photos that we take. We have more control of the images we share than we ever have before. And not only that, we can safely assume that most photos and videos we see on social media also have filters applied to them. That's kind of just a given. Now, as I've been sharing, it's very likely that you've already identified several major concerns with selfies and selfie culture. One of the main issues is that there really hasn't been much research done into how taking and viewing selfies affects people, especially young people. We simply don't know how it's affecting us, positively or negatively. Another issue with selfies is that it's difficult to know the undercover reason behind the selfie. And while there may be positive motivations behind posting, the reality is that there are also harmful reasons. Posting selfies to social media is harmful when we start to prefer the inauthentic instead of the authentic. In other words, when I prefer the photo I take more than the life I'm living, there's a big problem. There are a few reasons for why we might begin to prefer the photo over our reality. The first is body image issues. In her research about body image and shame, Brené Brown writes that body image happens to be the one issue that is the closest to universal, with over 90% of the participants in her study experiencing shame about their bodies. In fact, body shame is so powerful and often so deeply rooted in our psyche that it actually penetrates deeper than our appearance and impacts why and how we feel shame in other areas of our lives as well. It can be areas like identity, sexuality, parenting, health, and aging. When taking and viewing selfies of ourselves and other people begins to trigger these insecurities about our body and our self-worth, we can know that we've entered into a dangerous territory. I've struggled with my appearance, and if I am struggling, and in that moment, I'll begin to prefer the edited photos of myself to which I've maybe applied filters instead of a photo with my natural face or my natural figure. It's that preference of the artificial instead of reality that's a big warning sign. In severe cases, body image issues can lead to diagnosed disorders. The desire to take selfies could also be fueled by a need for approval due to a lack of body confidence and self-love, which quickly can spiral out of control. Professionals have coined this term Selfie Dysmorphia, which describes a type of body image disorder that reflects a need to heavily edit one's photos, but it's coupled with this intense dislike of the product that they've achieved. So not only can you not live with a natural photo of yourself, you don't even find satisfaction once you've edited it. It's a really hard place to be in. Another reason we might begin to prefer a photo instead of our reality has to do with a growing concern surrounding selfie culture, and that is that the selfie trend reflects a growing narcissism among those who are just unable to control their need to post selfies on a regular basis. The surprising thing about narcissism is that it's usually caused by childhood abuse or neglect, which leaves lasting wounds and insecurities. So if I'm becoming increasingly addicted to taking and sharing photos of myself, I might be trying to overcompensate because of deep wounds in my past and insecurities. Remember, the reasons behind taking and sharing selfies aren't always easy to pinpoint at first, especially in ourselves. They can seem easy to see in other people, but they're difficult to uncover in our own lives. But if we're going to honestly reflect on our own experiences with social media today, we're going to need to look a little bit deeper. And in order to help us do that, we're going to look at the Bible. And the reason why we're going to look at the Bible today is because it's kind of like God's handbook for life. The Bible is also the best-selling book of the year every year. It's stood the test of time, and if we take the time to read and understand it, it's going to help us thrive in life. Today we're going to look at a book written by Luke, who was a leader among the very first Christians. This passage is an excerpt from a talk that Jesus gave. We find out earlier in this chapter that Jesus and his disciples had found themselves a large empty space for him to give his talk, maybe a large field. Lots of space for people to come and gather. And it didn't take long before he was actually surrounded by his followers, people who were interested in what he had to say, and they had come to hear him give this talk. Many of them had traveled long distances to hear him speak, so you can imagine the buzz in the crowd. It might be kind of like attending a concert, and it's only moments before the band starts to play, kind of that buzz in the room. So the crowds are gathered, and everyone's waiting to hear what Jesus has to say. And here's a part of his talk. He says this: "A good tree can't produce bad fruit, and a bad tree can't produce good fruit. A tree is identified by its fruit. Figs are never gathered from thorn bushes, and grapes are not picked from bramble bushes. A good person produces good things from the treasury of a good heart, and an evil person produces evil things from the treasury of an evil heart. What you say flows from what is in your heart." So here, Jesus is drawing a line in the sand and reminding the people listening of what really matters. He starts off with this metaphor about trees and their fruit, and if he was speaking in modern times, he might say something like, apples don't come from cherry trees, and cherry trees don't come from apple trees. And we can tell what kind of tree it is by the fruit it produces. And in the same way, you can tell what's going on in a person's heart by what they say or do. Jesus said, it all flows from what's in your heart. And the nugget of truth that we can learn from what Jesus is teaching here is that it's actually what's on the inside that matters more about what appears on the outside, because it's what's on the inside that dictates how we behave outwardly. And it's how we behave outwardly that affects the people in our lives, for better or for worse, unfortunately. And this is especially important when we consider our social media interactions. We have the ability to interact with more people on a daily basis than we ever have before as a society. So it's more important than ever for us to constantly be tuned in to what's happening on the inside, in our hearts. Because when our hearts are hurting and unhealthy, we're going to make choices on social media that can hurt not only ourselves, but the people who view them and interact with them. Everything flows from the heart. Being tuned in to our own feelings is a surefire way to guard against making unhealthy choices online. But how do we know what's going on the inside? Well, the first step for all of us is to grow in self-awareness. There are a couple of key ways that we can do this. The first is we develop self-awareness by slowing down. Inner reflection doesn't happen when life moves at breakneck speed. The healthiest thing I can do is carve out time in my day to sit down and take a good, honest look at what's going on inside of me. Why did I feel the need to use that filter in that photo? Who am I hoping is going to see it and comment or like it? Why am I disappointed if I don't get a lot of reactions on my photo? These are the kind of questions we want to be asking as we take time to slow down and reflect. Second, we recruit trusted and honest people that will notice our outward behavior and check in on us when something seems off. These are people who also want to learn how to navigate social media in a healthy way. They're in that journey with us, and they're going to be honest with me when something's off. And they notice, hey, Emma, something's off, and I love you, and I want you to grow, so I'm going to let you know. This is really important. And this idea that, we could actually support and encourage one another to make healthy choices on social media begs the question, is there such thing as a healthy selfie? Could we actually navigate social media in a healthy way with a good perspective, in a way that helps us to thrive in life? Well, I would wager yes. I think we can. As humans, we're hardwired to crave human connection. And in the context of social media, we can choose to use the art of taking and sharing selfies to bless those who view them and interact with them. There are ways to take healthy selfies. First, we can opt for the authentic instead of the fake. We can do this by making conscious choices to ensure that the photos we post are an accurate representation of the life that we're living. For example, if you're used to using a filter, take a break. Try posting a natural photo. If you're used to cleaning up your background before you take that shot, challenge yourself to leave it as is and document that moment as it is in reality, not as you're hoping it would be. Second, we can challenge ourselves to post selfies that benefit and to bless others. Have you ever heard of a campaign called Dressember? Dressember. It's this amazing initiative. It's an online community of international advocates who utilize fashion and creativity to help end human trafficking. They do this by running annual campaigns where participants will sign up to wear a dress or a tie every day of December in order to gather sponsors to raise money and awareness to stop human trafficking. Dressember has actually raised $13 million since 2013. It's pretty incredible. And taking part in a campaign like Dressember gives you the opportunity to actually take daily selfies that not only spread the word about your commitment to raising funds and raising awareness, but it's also a way to bless and encourage those around you by what you're doing, the initiative that you're taking. Another simple way to bless somebody with a selfie is to take a selfie with someone else and actually give them a shout out in your caption and let them know what you love about them. Did you know what a selfie is called if there's multiple people in the shot? Anybody know? It's called a weefie. I thought that was pretty clever, a weefie. The simple act of taking and shifting the focus from ourselves to blessing and encouraging other people can actually have a real impact on those who see the selfie and engage with it on your social media feed. Or you can use selfies to share your recovery journey and inspire other people who are maybe struggling with things that you've struggled with in the past. You know, if you're at a place in your life where you're ready to share what you've been through, and you feel like your recovery journey could challenge and encourage somebody else going through similar struggles, that could be a great way to start posting uplifting and encouraging content to your feed. I mentioned earlier that one of the biggest issues with selfies and selfie culture is that we really don't fully know the extent of the effects it has on the younger generations. And though that can be a sobering and kind of a scary thought, there are ways that we can help kids who are growing up with selfies and selfie culture to navigate social media in a way that helps them to thrive in their lives. We can teach kids about healthy selfies by modeling them ourselves. We know that kids learn by what they see other people doing. So our commitment to healthy selfies isn't just for ourselves, but it's also for anyone younger than us who's on social media and looking for an example to follow. They're looking for somebody to pave the way for them. We can pave the way for that younger generation by modeling healthy selfies and healthy selfie culture, by valuing authenticity, and by actively looking for ways to encourage and support and bless other people through our social media. You know, I wanted to share a story from my own experience about social media and taking photos and sharing them online. I was scrolling through TikTok the other day, and this video popped up, and it caught my eye. The video was by a famous TikTok influencer, so she gets paid to post this video. This is what she does for her job. And she happens to be taller than her husband. And so she was posting this video giving instructions to other women who are taller than their husbands. How do you stand? Well, stand like this so that you will appear shorter in your photos. And you know, I had this moment where I was like, yeah, I think I could use that. That could be really helpful. I can do that. And you know, I've kind of tried it out. And then I caught myself. And I thought, what on earth? This was a really important moment for me. And it was an important moment because as a teenager and a young person, I have struggled with my height. I've always been taller than the average person in my grade or my age group. And that insecurity has been something that I have really worked to grow through and to appreciate my body and the way that I look. And this video really challenged me in that moment. How am I going to respond? And I have to be honest with you, it's my relationship with Jesus that has helped me to embrace authenticity in the photos that I post online and the videos that I post online. I had that moment. Was I going to take photos in a way that would try to mask our height difference and be constantly worried about how I was standing, what the photo looked like? Or was I going to be vulnerable and show people how my life looks? I know that Jesus is much more concerned about what's on the inside than what's on the outside. And it's because of that. It's because everything flows from what's inside. And you know what? That is why Jesus is the only way for me. Jesus helps us to make these kind of choices in those tough moments where our insecurities are challenged. And he helps us to truly thrive and navigate this world of social media in a healthy way. Well, as we wrap up today, I just want to walk us through a couple of quick, helpful questions we can ask as we interact on social media and post to our accounts this week. The first question is, does this photo reflect my current reality? Remember that choosing authenticity in our photos helps us to safeguard ourselves against harmful motivations for taking and sharing selfies. And here's the second question. When I look at this photo, how does it make me feel on the inside? This is a very important question to ask ourselves, not only when we post our own photos, but also when we view others online. Self-awareness, is the first step for all of us in this journey. We grow in self-awareness by slowing down, giving ourselves the time and the space to reflect on our emotions and what's truly going on the inside. We can also grow by recruiting trusted and honest people who will notice our outward behavior or check in with us when something seems off. These are ways that we can grow in self-awareness so that the things we post online truly begin to reflect what's going on the inside in our day-to-day lives. And the wonderful thing about following Jesus is that he walks with us in this journey. As we read in the passage earlier, it's what's going on the inside that really matters, because it's what's inside that causes everything else to flow out of. Jesus is really concerned about what's going on at a heart level. So every time we go to post a selfie or we scroll through our feed, we can actually ask Jesus to help us to discern how we're feeling and help us to make healthy choices in those moments, to lead us into better ways of navigating social media and help younger generations to do the same. You may be listening today and Jesus might just be a swear word to you. Or maybe you've tried following Jesus before and honestly it felt more like following a set of rules than entering into a relationship. I want to invite you to pray with me in a few moments here. And if you're wanting to learn more about Jesus and faith, why don't you let my words be your words in that moment? And if you're listening today and you do have a relationship with Jesus, I want to encourage you to be creative about how you can encourage and bless others through your social media. And invite Jesus into that creative process too. You might be surprised at how he leads you to encourage and bless the people in your social media circles. Well, let's pray. Jesus, I thank you that you are with us in this journey, that you are with me in this journey. Jesus, I pray that you would come into my life, that you would continue to lead me on this path, and that as I learn more and more about you, that you would continue to transform me from the inside out. Jesus, I invite you into my life. I want your love to change me and to change the way that I interact with the world around me. Jesus, I pray that you would continue to give me and us more and more capacity to love each other, especially on social media, God. It can be so challenging, and we're thankful that we're not alone in navigating these struggles. Jesus, we thank you for your love for us, and we thank you for your faithfulness to walk with us every step of the way. We pray all these things in your name. Amen.